starting with Mr. Dolan, to Leon, to the players, all the way down to the fans, is to build a sustainable winning culture that produces championships. That's why I'm here. I'm fortunate to know what it takes to create that success. It was a no-brainer for me. You know, the league is the league, and there's always going to be ebbs and flows in terms of how the hiring and firing process goes, and we just embrace it and keep moving forward.
There's a real reverence whenever Mike Brown speaks. Welcoming in our panel, our senior writer Ramona Shelburne, our senior writer Brian Windhorst, and I'm so glad we have our do-it-all analyst Monica McNutt here in Los Angeles as well. I'm glad we have you here today, Monica, because amongst your 50-11 jobs, one of them is spending time covering the New York Knicks. What do you think of what we just heard from Mike Brown and his fit here as the new head coach?
Well, I think that he said all the right things for sure, and I buy them as sincere, Malika. When you look at this team, these guys have great personalities. They've obviously had great success this past season. There's not a ton of tweaking that needs to be done. Yes, you mentioned it in your toss, getting over the hump, that will be on the shoulders of Mike Brown. But in terms of having an organization that is already committed to winning, that has been well established. And I think when I look at Mike Brown's resume, one of the things that jumps out, and we talked about this a bunch last week in New York, are the 2 Coach of the Year awards separated by decades, right? And so to me, it indicates that he's been able to adapt to this generation of both coaches and the style of the NBA game that has changed over time.
And he has won, maybe not as a head coach, but as an assistant coach. He's been a champion. He's been around the stars of the stars, the Steph Currys, the LeBron James. But when you're looking at a roster that is largely the same here, Ramona, and it's a huge head coaching shakeup, after the Knicks made it all the way to the conference finals, the bar of success, it's pretty freaking high.
So let's remind people, though, that when they did get rid of Tom Thibodeau, they met with a lot of the key players. There was interviews with 7 or 8 of the key players right before they made that decision. And so I think they're pretty confident knowing that Mike Brown will be well received here and a new voice will be well received. And I think probably his best attribute here is just his flexibility. You know, one of the things that happened with the Knicks, they have done the best 2-man combinations in offense early in the season with Jalen Brunson and Karl Towns. That pick and roll game worked so well. Then opponents changed things up a little bit. They would put Josh Hart's man onto Jalen Brunson, and they would dare Josh Hart to shoot. And the Knicks just never had a counter for it. And you saw that when they got to the playoffs, they were just very one note. And Mike Brown is a very collaborative guy. He's worked in a lot of situations. I first got to know him in Los Angeles when he worked with Kobe Bryant following Phil Jackson. And so this is a big job, the New York Knicks job, but this man has had some of the biggest jobs in sports already.
And he didn't mince words, right? He said, I am here to produce championships. He addressed that head on, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to like me saying this, but he has now been coaching in the NBA in 4 different decades. His career started in the NBA back in the 90s. And if you, like Ramona said, like, look who he's worked under. He's worked under Greg Popovich. He's worked under Steve Kerr. He's worked under Rick Carlisle. He's coached LeBron James. He's coached Kobe Bryant. He has seen a lot of things. He's been to the finals, I believe, with 3 different organizations. Once as a head coach. He's had a lot of success coaching in the East in a slow-down system. I've watched him coach teams that have won playoff games. They didn't break 80 points. He's coached the fastest-paced offense in the league, which he was with the Kings 2 years ago. So what the Knicks are doing here is they are hiring a coach with a big array of experience because they have a lot of things in place. What they need, as Ramona said, is the ability to have options. They need to be able to play different ways when they get in the playoffs so that when a team tries to impose a game plan on them, they can maneuver around a little bit. Some of that is on the front office, and they've added some players to their roster this year to give him more tools than Tom Thibodeau had before him. But some of this is going to be on Mike Brown to use the talent that he's got in his roster, get them to branch out a little bit so they're a little bit harder to play in a playoff season.
And one small thing, but I find it fascinating, he has experience coaching a lefty point guard, right? You're coming from coaching De'Aaron Fox.
Good point.
And now you get to coach Jalen Brunson. I'm curious, Monica, to see how that plays out on the floor.
Yeah, I think that's going to be fantastic. Jalen is so versatile, though, and I think he shoots with his right hand, although he is left-hand dominant. Look, not only the basketball part of it, but I think the IQ and the team elements of it all, right? In terms of being a manager of personalities, that's something that I think is also going to be hugely important to this group. Jayden, Prescott, Karl Anthony Towns, those guys are pretty set in who they are. It's the rest of that roster. The creativity extends to me beyond just the basketball of it all, but creating a true sense of buy-in up and down the roster.
They do have the best odds to beat the Oklahoma City Thunder, so everyone has high expectations.
Wow, they do.
Goodness. Everybody has high expectations of the New York Knicks here. Many of us, though, we've been away for the holiday, right? Some barbecue, maybe a little bit of pool time, but NBA teams, they were still bringing the fireworks, right? Teams have been active here in Los Angeles. Jobs reported early yesterday that the Clippers, the Jazz, and the Heat agreed to a trade. It sends Norm Powell to Miami, John Collins to the Clippers, and then Kevin Love, Kyle Anderson, and a 2027 Clippers second-round pick, all to Utah. Powell, remember, he was a borderline all-star. He averaged a career high just under 22 points a game last season. And this got some reaction from Kevin Love, who's become the king of social media, by the way. I was waiting for what he was going to say.
That's funny.
But this is how we weighed in. He said, I never thought I'd be a math problem. Welcome to the NBA. I guess welcome to the NBA indeed, Brian. What's your biggest takeaway when you're looking at this three-team deal?
Well, the reason Kevin said that, just so you know, is because he had to be included in this deal for salary purposes.
Right.
And the Heat are thrilled with what they got in this deal. They've been looking for a way to upgrade the talent on their roster and to be able to basically get John Collins from the from the Jazz and then flip him to the Clippers for Norm Powell. That is a big upgrade to their backcourt. Norm Powell is coming off of a career season. His steady improvement in the mid part of his career has been terrific. This is definitely the type of move that in an Eastern Conference that frankly is banged up and is devoid of talent. This kind of talent influx is huge for the Heat. And the Clippers make a big move here. They have added a lot to their front court over the last 2 weeks, signing Brook Lopez to be Ivica Zubac's backup, and now adding John Collins, a frontline power forward in the last year of his contract. You assume he's going to be motivated to have a big season.
Man, Wendy, repost, retweet, heavy on the what does this mean for the Miami Heat, y'all. Like, when I saw this going down, I'm like, huh? So I just go through this roster tentatively, right? Like, Norman Powell, I am in on that dude. I don't think last year was a fluke. Certainly it could be one of his career years, but I think he's in place to be able to duplicate that sort of productivity the next couple of seasons. But if you give me Adebayo, Powell, Hero, Wiggins, and Ware, Ware, I still think is a little bit of a gem in the league in terms of folks not knowing how dynamic he is at 7 foot. But in the East, that is sort of open outside of the odds that you just mentioned for the New York Knicks. Like, that's not a bad starting lineup. You sprinkle in a little bit of Heat culture, if I may.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you kind of got to see what can happen down the South.
The backcourt is a little crowded. I'm curious if they're done making moves here. But since we're in Los Angeles and Clippers fans are curious, they desperately needed a power forward. That's something that last season they're kind of looking around and saying, all right, Kawhi cannot be taking on all of these minutes, right? Ramona, are they done? How are they feeling? If the East is wide open, the West is crowded.
Well, I don't think a team as smart as the Clippers front office would leave themselves bare in the starting shooting guard position if they didn't have a pretty good feeling that there might be a pretty good shooting guard becoming available via the buyout market fairly soon, and that's Bradley Beal. So I think you should regard the Clippers as one of the favorites for Bradley Beal if he is indeed bought out by the Phoenix Suns, and that comes to fruition as